is crowdfunding? Crowdfunding is a practice of funding a project or venture by raising many small amounts of money from a large number of people, typically via the internet. There are three main models of crowdfunding: reward-based, equity-based, and debt-based. For the purpose of this essay, we'll only discuss reward-based crowdfunding, or non-equity crowdfunding. It is also the most popular type of crowdfunding and the one prominently used to crowdfund film projects. In return for the donations from fans of the project's creators typically give out small incentives to donors. It could range from an early access to the final product, a visit to the film set, to having the executive producer credit.
It's always hard. With or without is hard, because you're relying on other people to believe in your project and give you money. And the reason why we went to crowdfunding, or the reason why anybody goes to crowdfunding, is because they can't get money elsewhere, right? And we struggled a lot. For example, the first project, because I was still very new here to the country, so nobody really knew my work, and we were getting a bit desperate, so we said, and it's a short amount, let's crowdfund. With this one, because the project was unique, I had to start filming without money because I just met the characters and it's about assisted suicide, so it was very there was time limit on it. I couldn't write a treatment and apply for research funding through the traditional means, so we had to start filming. And when we were done filming, we started applying for money. And most broadcasters don't like to come in halfway like that, because they want to have some control a little bit of how, and be part of starting the project. So we were getting turned down everywhere, so we thought, okay, this is the last resort, let's get some crowdfunding. So we went for that.
Is crowdfunding a new concept? Not really. Even though the term itself only became popular recently, the idea of people contributing together to see a project to realization dated way back in the 18th century. Particularly in 1713, poet Alexander Pope took advance subscriptions to translate Homer's Iliad from Greek into English. It was a 7-year project that saw a single volume produced each year. A more popular example would be when the French built the Statue of Liberty for the US back in the 19th century. The US struggled to raise the $250,000 to build a granite plinth to place her. After running out of potential funding methods, publisher Joseph Pulitzer launched a fundraising campaign in his newspaper, The New York World, which ultimately raised enough cash from 160,000 individuals to cover the remaining $100,000 needed to erect the statue. One of the first directors who adopted crowdfunding model is Fanny Armstrong. The £450,000 budget of the film The Age of Stupid was crowdfunded throughout the period from 2004, when she wrote the film, to when she released the film in 2009. However, crowdfunding in film did not become popular until sites like Indiegogo and Kickstarter were founded in 2008 and 2009 respectively. The establishment of these sites, along with a sharp increase in the amount of internet users, have laid the ground for a new era of film financing. That's one of the main differences between traditional film financing and crowdfunding. With traditional film financing, the funding comes from one of a very small number of investors who contribute large sums of money and have creative influence over your film. With crowdfunding, on the other hand, the funding comes from many small sums of money contributed by a large number of people, with the filmmaker still retains the absolute creative freedom of control.
One of the things that we did on this film was there was a party with a lot of rich people connected to the main character in my film. So we thought this is a great opportunity to go and advertise and show them the trailer and pitch the film and get money. And I made a nice connection with a guy that I followed up with email. And I pushed, because I felt we had a nice connection, I thought I promoted the executive producer package to him. I said, okay, you can have creative influence and executive power in the film if you give this amount of money. So he wrote me back saying, do you really think it's good to have executive power of people who donate. Is that a smart thing to do? And at first I thought maybe not, but then I think all funding for film, whether it's through crowdfunding or not, you're always giving executive power to people who give you the money. Like in the more traditional way, a broadcaster is going to send their commissioning editor to your editing room, watch the rough cut, give you notes. Everybody who gives you money is always want to have some control. But the difference with crowdfunding is that you're putting the control in the people who are outside the industry, just the public. You're making them part of the film, which could be good, or you're opening up yourself to people who are not experienced. But I think, again, it's your role to retain your artistic integrity and vision.
A good example of that comes from Wongfu Productions, an independent film company based in California, US. As an effort to make their first feature film in 2008, they were promised funding by several studios in the region. However, the studios all have one condition, that they need to change their preferred Asian leads to quote-unquote something more marketable. Upon hearing that their ethnicity is considered a negative factor in the project, they decided to postpone and find an alternative way of financing the film. Fast forward to 2016, their film, Everything Before Us, is finally shot, edited, and released after a successful crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo 1 year prior, reaching almost double their initial goal of $200,000. And guess what? All the leads are Asians. Which brings me to my next point. Crowdfunding is not only about providing money, it's also about market validation and proof of audience. Wongfu not only raised the money they needed for the film, they also proved that there's an audience for it, despite their casting preference. Crowdfunding has its downsides too, however. For certain sites like Kickstarter, if you don't reach your funding goal, the money will be returned to contributors and you'll receive nothing. There's also the risk of IP infringement. Someone might steal your concept if it's not copyright protected. But the argument that makes people hesitant to consider this platform the most is that it's not regarded as professional as other funding methods.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, definitely. And that's why also I feel the general impression is you get a little bit less respect from people. Because, anybody can crowdfund. I mean, like my mother can go online and ask for money, or GoFundMe or something. So people don't look at it in the industry with, it could be just me being paranoid, but I don't feel they have it the same weight as a distributor or a broadcaster giving you money. It's not official, but who cares? The point is making a film, and if you believe you can make a good film, you should do it any way you think is right. I hope I don't have to use it all the time, but I mean, who cares? If you have to, you have to. I always think of this, people in film say, oh, we don't make films unless it's on 35 millimeters, or we don't make films through just being rigid to new ways is kind of stupid, I think. If that's the way it's going, that's the way it's going. The risk, again, something we already mentioned about, it just looks a bit less professional when you get money from people instead of organizations. It has less an official feel, but if you're confident in what you're making, as independent filmmakers, you have to get it wherever way. So the growth of crowdfunding is very closely related to kind of the growth of social media. And I think that's why it's more tailor-made for younger people or people who have a very, very strong presence, like YouTube personalities or Instagram personalities. If you take, for example, not film, if you take fashion industry, look at the Kardashian girls, the younger ones, because they have 60 million followers, they're becoming brand ambassadors of fashion, and they're taking the jobs away from models and people who went through the traditional route simply because they have an online following. So I think it's about you. It's always about you as in the crowdfunding. It's always about the people behind, putting yourself in equal importance to the film that you're making or the product that you're making. It becomes more about you.
So, with that in mind, is crowdfunding the way the film industry is heading? It's not an easy question to answer. Outside the indie circle, there are already examples of Hollywood writers and directors using this medium to raise money. Recently, in 2015, adaptation and being John Malkovich screenwriter Charlie Kaufman used Kickstarter to fund his first animated film, Anomalisa, while David Fincher, director of Fight Club and The Social Network, used it to raise over $400,000 for just a story reel. There's also the story of Innocente, the first crowdfunded film that won the Oscar for Best Documentary Short. According to Kickstarter, 38% of their projects get successfully funded, while that number for Indiegogo is only 9%. So, the job is definitely not easier with crowdfunding. Despite the different opinions people might have on crowdfunding, it's clear judging by the sheer number of platforms, which is estimated to be 1,250 in 2014, rising from just over 300 platforms a year prior, according to Mars Solution. And the amount of money people are putting up to support good ideas, that crowdfunding is here to stay and has a big future.